Welcome back to another Looking for Work. We do this every week, Tuesday, 12 o'clock noon. We jump on, talk about what it takes to land your first job in tech. My name is Mike Roberts. My email is right there on the screen. And if you've got a question, feel free to drop it in the comment box. It'll come directly to me, and then I'll take some time and try and answer it. I'll hang out here for as long as people have questions, and this is going across live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitch, I think. So I'm just going to look down for just a second. I know it's terrible. This is a complete distraction, but I just want to make sure we are live on LinkedIn, and it looks like we are live. So ask me anything about the job search process. I'm here to help. I've hired lots of software engineers in the past decade or so. I've been writing software since I was a teenager, so 30 plus years. And yeah, I'm more than happy to share any of the insights and knowledge that might help you if you're early on in your journey and you're looking to land that first role as a software engineer. I know much of it is not an intuitive process, and it takes a little while to kind of navigate and optimize your job search process. So I'm here to try and affect that change and help you just get done with the process as fast as you can, shorten that journey. So, hey, how's it going, Samita? Good to see you. Glad that you're joining us again today. And again, anybody out there that has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. So either on Facebook, you can leave it as like a kind of a comment. So if you make a comment, that will come to me directly as a question. So drop it in the comment box. What's up, Dan? It's good to see you as well. So we got Mr. Dan Carr watching us today. Brilliant gentleman in the software engineering space. So if you got to start up, you should definitely check out the work that Dan's doing building MVP products and helping people take stuff to market. So Dan Carr, I believe it's Carr Media, but yeah, good guy, solid. Yeah, so we do this every week. Typically, I'll talk a little bit about something that I kind of either see or hear in the space over the course of the week, or if we got questions that come in via email. Yeah, man, I think this is about to be a really great second half of the year. I'm feeling it, even after just this first quarter. Lots of employers are talking about hiring this year. They're talking about increasing their presence, and that I think that affords an opportunity for a lot of folks that are just finishing up either a coding boot camp or self-taught, whether you went online or you're in person. I know the experience can be a little challenging, and so I'd say first and foremost, just embrace it, treat it like a job. And if you treat the process like a job and you kind of have some discipline to it, you'll have no problem. You'll get there, right? So if you have questions about like what activities you should be doing, I talk about that quite a bit. So you can go back and watch some of the previous, I do this every Tuesday. So you can watch some of the previous recordings. They're all on YouTube. So subscribe on YouTube, hit that little like button, all that good stuff, so that you can, again, just have another set of tools in your toolbox that you can use to try and shorten this process. So I'm gonna move the mic a little closer here, maybe a little better for folks. So yeah, so feel free to drop some comments and questions. This past week, what did I see? I saw a few things that I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. And mostly it's on the side of employers. I see a lot of employers that are asking a lot of candidates. And so I've had candidates say, how do I get into a shop if what they're saying is they require a certain amount of experience? So first thing I'd always caution folks is like, that's a wish list, right? When they're saying, I want 2 years of experience or 3 years of experience, that's what they would ideally like, but the job will stay open until they find a candidate that they're impressed by and they feel like has what they need for where they're at right now, right? And so pressure begins to increase on those organizations often if the opening stays open for a while. So I would encourage you to, when you're looking at the job requisites or the postings, the job requirements, then just consider them a wish list, right? don't take it as a major deterrent that if you don't have all of the skills that are listed, that it's not worth applying. That said, if you don't have many of the skills that are listed and it would be a stretch and you feel like you wouldn't be able to perform to the level that it looks like the job requires, then it might be a stretch. And so you really want to feel confident that it's a job that you can very quickly ramp up and grow in. And that is a good fit, right? So if it feels like it's a bit of a stretch, that's all right. But if it feels like it's like, whoa, I would just be drowning in this position, and then look for something that's going to be a better fit and is going to give you an opportunity to thrive in that environment and not feel like you're under the pressure of like performing right away and not being capable of doing so. So I'm looking down. I'm seeing some likes on our previous looking for works. I like that. Super excited. Last week we talked about Apple bringing a bunch of jobs to San Diego. I think that's a super positive for the region because it generally means that as the larger folks come into the region, they sort of start looking at the talent that's already in the existing ecosystem and pulling from companies. And that creates sort of a ripple effect of like jobs at other organizations opening up. And so the whole ecosystem benefits from having the additional demand of a big employer like Apple coming into the ecosystem, and people like working at well-known shops. So the more established and senior people will have a little bit of an inside track into those roles, but that doesn't mean that there will be no opportunities for earlier career folks. So you gotta take each of those opportunities for what it is. It's overall a win for the ecosystem, and it should result in some very lucky folks getting their first break and getting to work at Apple as their first job. Not everybody's going to fit, but it'll create more doors than it's going to create stress and problems for folks. So I like it. I'm pretty excited. For the most part, I think everything else is looking super positive from my perspective in terms of companies making more postings, more interviewing. So I think signs are that COVID is starting to get a little bit more under control in terms of how companies are forecasting their growth over the course of the next year or so. A lot of companies talking about whether or not they're going to be back working in person and whether or not long term they're going to stay remote. And so remains to be seen. Like, I can't call it yet. I don't know whether everybody's going to embrace just a couple of days out of the week being remote, or whether there's going to be a big backlash and people are going to be like, hey, we need more productivity. We need people back in the offices sooner rather than later. What do you think? Let me know, because I think at this point we're all just kind of trying to peer into the crystal ball and figure out like what this is going to look like over the next year or so. And I don't know. I got a hypothesis, but I don't know about what's going to happen. I think it's pretty hard to speculate. A couple of years ago, we'd be at where we're at right now. So interesting. So yeah, so I'm gonna give folks a chance to post some questions. Let me know what's on your brain. What do you think is going to be sort of the thing that I can do to help and make it easier for you to get a foot in the door, get an opportunity, and yeah, what do you think about the marketplace? Are you as optimistic as I am right now? Because often I talk to students that are they feel a little maybe beat down, that they're not hearing back from folks, and they begin to take it a little bit more like personal and not really with the more high level view that I take, like the 30,000 foot view of like, it's just a process, right? You just got to grind through this process, just like you grind through learning the fundamentals. You just got to grind it out. And in the end, as long as you're working efficiently, you're going to get a job sooner rather than later. Now, if you're being inefficient, it's going to take you longer, right? If you're, I don't want to say lazy, but if you're just not willing to do the work that's required, and it's going to be work for most folks. Most folks are going to consider it, a little out of your comfort zone to be reaching out to folks and to be following up and doing lots and lots of follow-ups. It's outside of your comfort zone. So it feels like it's even heavier work than what it really is, which is, it's writing a couple emails and then, changing it up and not just like sending out canned emails, but really making it relevant to the person that you're trying to reach out to, connecting with folks on LinkedIn and, not using robotic process automation, but like really genuinely reaching out to people and saying, hey, I'm super interested in the work that you're doing. I have a passion of doing this. I'm working on some passion projects. Just really admire X, Y, or Z about your company, about what you're doing, your background, etc. And then parlaying that into a relationship and kind of figuring out like, okay, this is kind of cool. How do I get involved in like San Diego JavaScript community, right? And other ways that you can network with folks and begin to learn like who else is out in the space, what are they working on, and where are their opportunities. That's more likely to result in a faster time to offer than if you're just taking the shotgun approach and applying everywhere and then praying, spray and pray that someone will respond to you. It's not a good strategy. Pretty consistently never works. That's what everybody tries at first, right? Because you don't, in the absence of more information, you don't kind of know what else to try, right? Other than go on Indeed and Monster and go on Dice and every day just do a search and then jam your resume out there and fill out the applications and like pray. But it's super inefficient and it hardly ever works. Hardly ever works. So what else are other people finding working? Because I know last week we had somebody that jumped on and he said that this helped, that he tried some of the things that I talked about and he got a job. So I'm super eager to hear from other folks. I know oftentimes when people get a job, they just like skedaddle and I don't hear from them for a while. And they're like, oh man, you got a job. That's awesome. But I do know a lot of the students that I've had in the past at either boot camps that I worked at or through this Looking for Work program are really able to leverage some of these, little tactics to make a difference. So if it's happening, drop me a message. If it's not, and if I'm just talking to myself right now, this is going to be a shorter than normal session. So please send me some questions. Let me know what's on your brain. And then I can do my best to try and answer those questions. I'm going to check my email, see if anything came through an email. Man, I'm getting a lot of reach outs. And just so everybody knows, I get a lot of reach outs now. There's a lot of folks that are using all kinds of like tactic and techniques to connect on LinkedIn. So you definitely want to make sure that you're personalizing it and doing the whole like your profile came up. Like that's not super helpful. Bo Yang. Yes, sir. Mr. Yang. Good to see you. Man, we're getting some, I love this. Connecting with some folks. Blast from the past. You have a question, it's not Java. All right, give it to me. What is your question, Bo? More than happy to answer whatever you get on your mind. If I can. I cannot give you the winning lottery ticket numbers for tonight. I wish I could tell you that. What are you up to, Bo? Tell me something good. Yeah, bro. It's good to see you. It's been a while. I'm hoping you're still here. I'm hoping you didn't flee and go back to I know that was one of the options on the table. So I'm hoping you're still here. Tell me something good. Tell me that you're trying to decide between Facebook and Netflix. What do you got going on? You have a good job. See, this is a good problem to have. This is, folks. So Bo was a student of mine a few years back. And so Bo is saying he's got a good job, keeps getting DMs from recruiters regarding new opportunities. Yeah, that's going to happen. That's going to happen. So once you get your first job, you're going to get people reaching out to you. Yeah. So my suggestion on that is it's perfectly fine for you to have conversations with folks. If I'm kind of trying to read the tea leaves here with, you haven't yet asked a question, but here we go. Have an interview with Amazon front-end software developer engineer and AWS SageMaker. So debating what I should do. In terms of between the place that you're currently at and taking a job offer, is that what your question is? How about a specific, what's your specific question? Because I'm kind of guessing and taking stabs at it, but I want to be more helpful. So while you're typing in your question, yeah, this is not an uncommon occurrence. A student, a couple years out starts getting on the radar of much larger companies. This is kind of par for the course. So the first time, super hard, right? Your first opportunity, a lot of times you're going to start at a smaller organization. It might take you a little while to get in, get that first opportunity under your belt, but then you'll be getting messages from recruiters every day. So that's why I give the pro tip. When you're on the job search, use a Google Voice number, use a burner phone. So put a Google Voice number and then have that redirect the calls to your cell phone number. That way, as soon as you get a job, you can immediately just like send all those calls to voicemail and not have them like calling your phone the first week you're on the job, right? And the second week you're on the job, and the third week you're on the job. People just keep calling you because once you put your number out there, it's hard to reel it back in, right? So make sure that you're giving yourself you want to get onto the job somewhere. You want to spend a year, 2 years there. I'd say 2 years is good. If you spend a minimum of 2 years, then I think it makes sense for you to, if you feel like it makes more sense in your career to make a change, to make a shift, I think that's totally reasonable. Less than 2 years, I'd say probably want to hang tight. So Bo's question is, should I be moving forward with Amazon interviews or stay with my current employer? It depends on how long you've been there. So if you've been with your current employer for less than 2 years, then I would say you might want to hang tight. You might want to just stay in the spot that you're in, unless you're in a situation where if the company has misled you, if it's a toxic work environment, if it's a really negative scenario, then I would say you got to skedaddle. You got to get out of that situation. But if you're not in one of those scenarios and you're less than 2 years in, sit tight. That reach out from Amazon, that reach out from Google, that reach out from all these big name brands. It's not a one-time deal. It's not like a one and done. They'll keep coming back. You can very easily say, now's not the right time for a move, and you can kind of play the longer game, which is gain more experience, really get to know the product and the service that you're currently at. Invest 2 years because they invested in you, so invest 2 years there. And then at that 2 year point, look and see what are the career opportunities within that organization versus what are the career opportunities elsewhere, and then make the decision. So 100% of the time, I'm going to tell folks, unless the environment is toxic, stay put, 2 year minimum. So that's the end of that question. And I know for a lot of folks, it's frustrating because they want that like, oh, Amazon's calling, so I should jump ship. Like, no, not necessarily. I don't think so. It's not going to go anywhere. Those organizations, Amazon's still going to be Amazon in 2 years, in 1 year, in 6 months, whatever it takes to put 2 years under your belt. So these are the interesting dilemmas for those people that are early on in the career. These are like, this is real talk. Bo is not a plant. I haven't talked to Bo in a while, so he's not a shill. This is really what happens about a year or two in, is you start having these debates about, hey, should I take these other opportunities because they come fairly frequently. And right now there's a lot of demand for more senior and seasoned software engineers. So once you get about a year in, then you're in a really good spot, right? So then you just need to hang tight, put that 2 year in, then figure out, okay, what opportunities are there in the organization you're in? And then if those don't seem great, then you can explore, where else could there be a good place for you in your career? I'm not a huge advocate of like every 6 months change jobs and go somewhere else to get a little bump in your pay. That can really backfire. And frankly, you haven't even given yourself a really good chance of making sure that it's a good fit if you're only there for 6 months. And I know there are people that will just like, well, it's 6 months, and then if I can get a pay bump to go somewhere else, it's like, yeah. But what you don't know is if you could just stay there for 3 years, you could get a super huge pay bump, and like they could give you, a much bigger area of responsibility because you invested in them, and you wouldn't know that if you just keep bouncing from place to place every 6 months, like a nomad. It's not good. What other questions do you have? That was a really good one. What else? Feel free, drop it in the box. You can always send me an email. If you send me an email, I can definitely respond in the next looking for work session. And we do this every week. So every Tuesday we'll be back. We'll be doing the same thing. Rain or shine, we're indoors. So we do this. Absolutely. You are welcome, Bo. All right. If I don't get any other questions, we're going to end this early, and I'm going to lunch it up. And you see that brings a smile to my face. So, yeah, I'll be here next week. So if you catch this on the LinkedIn or on the YouTube feed, and you're like, well, how do I participate? How do I get my questions answered? Let's do it live, because live is like so much more entertaining. And it gives me the chance to, like, really, if you're riffing off something or if you're more specific question, to get that feedback in real time. So, oh wow, get one. Nice. All right. So while I'm answering this question, let's get some more in here. So tell a friend. Hey Mike, as a recent graduate, one of my background is in recruiting. How do you love into consulting? I think the question is, how do I move? Is L close to M? Yeah, kind of close on the keyboard. So, so I think your question is around moving into consulting. And if that is the case, just throw me like a little thumbs up or a yes, and I'll start with that. And then, yeah. So when you're talking about moving into consulting, I think the key with consulting, at least in my opinion, when I've done consulting work in the past, is to really leverage, like, what is your superpower? What are you talented at that you can provide as value to your end customers? And if you can really narrow that down and you can find, like, okay, I'm really good at, maybe it's something in the recruiting space. Maybe it's like, you're really good at identifying talent and really being able to kind of help organizations with their either recruiting needs or talent management, right? And so you want to kind of go from just being a recruiter to being more of a consultant about developing their strategy around hiring and onboarding. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if that's actually your thing. So first is identifying really what is your thing and how can you get as specific as possible and get like down to like the very niche, down to like the industry and the vertical, where it's like you are the most competent in that space. And then what I would do is then go out and like say, hey, I can help you solve this problem and get a few customers. This is something that you can do as a freelance, super easy. You can hang up your own shingle and kind of, as long as you have some other income coming in, you can kind of dictate which clients you're going to take on, and you can be super choosy about the clients and make sure they're really good fits for you. And then, from my experience, the majority of the rest of it is to do consulting well. It's about managing expectations. It's about setting up from the very beginning that this is what you're competent in. These are the results that they should expect. Understanding this is what success looks like in the mind of the customer. Can you deliver on that? And if so, awesome. Then it's just execute, right? To walk them through what that process is, and eventually the process will get easier especially if you stay in the same space and stay in the same niche, because a lot of your learning and a lot of like your interactions with clients are they're going to carry over, and you'll find very similar challenges and problems that you're trying to solve, and you'll have much more ready to go collateral and worksheets and things like that to process it. So I would try and if you're trying to move into the space, stay super niche and go slow, right? Try and only take a few clients on at a time and try and really keep them in the same space. The opposite is what usually happens, is folks are just like, I want to do this and I want to do it full time. And to do it full time, it means it's hard because you got to do both sales. You only eat what you kill. So you got to do sales and you got to do fulfillment. And that's hard to do as like a one-person shop. So ideally, if you can find someone else that either also has a similar niche and similar space that vibes really well with you, then you could start and try and do something where you have a partnership with somebody else, and two heads better than one. It could make it easier to move into that space. But that's kind of how I would, if I was a recent graduate, how I would attack it if I had to start over from, okay, just graduated, to be like, okay, what am I kind of good at? Do I have a little bit of experience with? Let's go deep into that first, just a few clients, and then build out a practice over time. Hopefully that helps, because I think there's a lot of different consulting practices, Dominica, that you could do that could leverage your recruiting background if that's what you kind of want to do. If you want to do something else, then again, it's going to be finding those first couple clients that are willing to pay you for the work. And if you need to, you can do a couple free projects to get your, get some business, get your name out there, but just make sure that you're getting something in exchange. People will sometimes ask me, like, is it okay to do free projects if you're doing consulting or if you're doing freelance work? Yes, it's okay for you to do a project where you're not paid cash, as long as they're making an in-kind contribution that's the equivalent of cash, right? So like, if they're your first customer, they're going to give you an amazing testimonial, and then you get to use their product on your portfolio. That could be better than the cash, right? Because it's giving you that social proof that you need to win your second and your third and your fourth client. And with each one of them, if you're getting referrals and you're getting something that you can put on your portfolio and you're getting a testimonial, like all of those are just as good as cash, in my opinion. And I know that's how Gary Vee thinks too. So yeah, me and Gary Vee, we're on the same page on that one. All right. Any other questions? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to end this in like 10 seconds. I know it takes a little while for people to, there's a little delay between when I say it and then when it ends. But if there aren't any others, that's fine. That's an early lunch for me. And it means that you must be heads down, reaching out and following up with employers. So that's a good thing. I like that. And we'll regroup next week. Again, hit that subscribe on YouTube so that you don't miss these. And we'll keep doing it. Oh, Justin Renfro, just in the nick of time. Not 10 seconds. 2-minute delay. What's up, LinkedIn? 2 minutes. Justin Renfro. I am a huge fan of this dude right here. He is, I guess the best word to describe him would be chill. He's pretty chill. Hustle. Nah, not hustle. It's chill. He does hustle. He does hustle. But he is chilling. Yo, Justin has got me investing. I am now officially an investor. I love putting that on my LinkedIn, and I got mad love for people that just like me are taking the entrepreneurial journey, and I'm loving just like being a part of it, being part of the mix. So Johnson works for a WeFunder, so big shout out to WeFunder, helping lots of folks really just like bring their ideas to life and getting people and like getting the power of the crowd to like invest and support the startup. I think is just amazing. It's way better than like Kickstarter, right? It's different, but it's kind of same. But very different. It's not, I shouldn't even say it's kind of the same. They're two different things, but it's crowd investing. So if you're thinking about like, hey, what it would be like to help somebody else that's like developing and starting a business or growing their business, check out WeFunder. And if you're growing a business, that could be a good place for you to find a source of capital for you to be able to grow and expand your business. So shout out to WeFunder. Good folks there. Okay, Sophia says, I have experience in programming for research and data analysis, functional, not for production. So trying to get a job in software development. Do I have any tips for getting an entry-level job? Yes, I have many tips for getting an entry-level job. The cool thing is if you already have some experience in programming, like for whatever purpose, right? Whether it's, scripting, whether it's, doing some things that are, I think what you mean by functional, not production, are there are more like utilities, like you built maybe little libraries, little applications to help you solve some real world problems. That's kind of all software engineering is, right? It's just the problems that you're solving are either for like more consumer facing, or they could be for internal teams inside of an organization. So it could be an internal customer, external customer, but it's more of the same. So I'd say you definitely have a leg up if you already know a little bit of just scripting and coding in general. And then I would say it's going to depend when you say getting an entry level job. It really depends on what type of work that you want, right? Do you want to do web development? Do you want to do back end engineering? Do you want to do full stack software engineering? The first thing you've got to kind of, if you're more experienced, you have a little bit more of a chance of getting a like position that might complement your skills versus someone that's just like, I need anything I can get that's within my wheelhouse. You might say, hey, I might want to get some experience in, or get a job in, and then it might be in this very specific vertical like biotech and life sciences. If your research and data analysis was in that space, I don't know, it could be in something else, right? So the first thing I would do is really assess what type of role are you looking for. Are you looking for web development? Are you looking for data engineering? Are you looking for data science? Then once you figure out that, then the next is, do you have all the skills and you're ready to do the job now? So it says, okay, good. So Caleb, good to see you. And Sylvia now says full stack web dev. So full stack web development means that you may have some gaps that you have to fill. Don't know. But assuming that you have a few gaps, fill the gaps first. So figure out like, okay, I'm pretty strong in this, and then just make sure that you have some of the other pieces that might be necessary. If you feel like you have all the pieces, then it's just about the job search. Then it's about the process that I usually share with folks is making sure you're spending a good portion of every week working on passion projects, because that's what you're going to use to demonstrate your skill, and not necessarily I finished this code school or I've done these projects in the past for my employer. Like, I, as a hiring manager, want to know how passionate are you, and given some free time on your hands, what are you capable of building, right? So you should be working on passion projects. You should be doing some job search where you're going out and you're looking for opportunities. You should be doing reach outs to make sure that folks know that you're interested in the roles and you're networking and connecting with folks. And then finally, you should be following up and making sure that after you reached out to someone, that you're following up until you actually get an offer, right? Until you close the deal and they hire you. So the ratio of those may fluctuate depending on where you're at. If you're still in the trying to gain all the skills necessary, then you got to spend more time building software and creating projects and working on passion projects. If that part's good, then it's really about, you got to start reaching out. Most jobs are not posted, so you'll want to make sure that you're doing the appropriate amount of reach out and networking to make sure that you find the available opportunities, because many of them are not going to be just like posted anywhere, right? So once you start networking with folks, you'll find internal champions inside of companies. They're like, oh, hey, I saw Sylvia at a meetup and it was super interesting. We were nerding out about this project that she did, and she's looking to move into web dev. I think, we were talking about maybe opening up a position for that. We should have a conversation with her. Those kinds of things will happen, because by the time the job hits like a job board, man, they've already been looking. Right. And so it could be that the organization has been looking for a while and they have a very narrow thing that they're looking for. And there's a variety of reasons, but I'd say 3 out of 4 jobs never make the board, because they will tell the current engineers, hey, we're looking for one more front end developer. So if you know anybody that you'd be a good fit, let us know. And hey, we'll give you we'll give you $1,000 if the person comes on and they stay for 3 months. Right. Now I'm incentivized, if I'm an employee in that shop, to recommend only the people I know that are going to be good, that I want to work with, one, and number two, that will last for a few months so I can get my little $1,000 bonus, right? So that means that it's much more likely that they will never even have to post that job. They will literally just be able to have all of the engineers go to their networks, and then that person gets an opportunity. You get the phone screen, you get the on-site interview, and hopefully you get the job. So the other generic tip that I would say for getting the entry-level job is you should be tracking your activities on a regular basis. You should use a spreadsheet, put columns, and in the first column you put the company that you reached out to, the next column, who you reached out to, when you reached out to them, and when you're going to follow up with them, and maybe what the current outcome is right now. Like you're waiting to hear back from them, or you sent them your resume, or whatever those outcomes are. So I would say you should use that to track your progress and treat the job search like a job, right? So roughly 10 good solid researching the company, networking, and submitting an application. That's at least 10 of those a week. And then all the other surrounding activities, and you'll be good to go. That's really the formula. That is the formula in a nutshell. So hopefully that helps, Sylvia. Those are kind of at a high level, some of the best tips that I have in terms of the process that you should follow, as well as some of the other ones I covered today, like the burner phone. The burner phone is great. I remember I was on the job at an employer once, and I was the first week on the job, and a recruiter called, and I was like, I already got a job. Thanks. Appreciate it. And they're like, any chance you know Aaron? And I was like, yeah, he works right next to me. He's like standing next to me. He's like 5 feet away. And they're like, oh, do you think you could give my contact information to him? And I'm like, no. I'm not going to do that, because I'm not going to help you poach someone in my first week on the job. That's not a thing I'm going to do. I'd like to keep my job here. So, but yeah, so like some folks, they got no shame. So they will just constantly hit you up. So make sure you use that burner phone. So as soon as you get a job, you can just like cut that short. And then you can always turn it back on when you're back out on the job market, but you can't unprint your resume when it gets out there into the wild. So the burner phone number, that's the best pro tip that people thank me all the time for. Burner phone. Google Voice. They're free. All right. Any other questions? Now I feel like I got to wait 2 minutes because Justin said there's a 2-minute delay. So I'm giving the early warning at 37:45 that if you ask a question, I'll keep talking. If you don't ask a question, I'm going to go eat lunch. So thanks for joining, Sylvia. I'm super curious. How are people finding out about this too? Are you folks just folks in the network? Have people been telling you like, hey, you should check this out? I'm super curious, mainly because I want to like kind of understand what works, what doesn't work. Because I'd love to help as many more people as I can. So I'm not selling anything. Like no one has heard me sell anything so far, right? So I'm just genuinely interested in helping as many people as we can. And I think it's pretty easy to spend most of my lunch on Tuesday talking about the job search process. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions come through. So, Laurel Kelly. All right, cool. Laurel, she's a good one. So birds of a feather fly in this flock or something like that. That means that you must be pretty good too. So that's a good sign. I think you're going to get a job. Nice. Static site, Caleb. Good job. Keep knocking them out. Like that's what you're going to need. You're going to need just a bunch of those that you can show, like just like you're saying, you're using the lingo, you're using static site. I can immediately tell what you're doing there, right? So awesome. And then there's some options too. So if you're like, well, I'm on a shoestring budget, how do I go about like saving some money if I'm building all these passion projects? So I would point out that there are some pretty generous tiers on like either Azure or AWS where you can host your site on like a S3 bucket on AWS. Azure kind of has some equivalents as far as places where you can very inexpensively host your website, and you could host it on GitHub. So you could use GitHub Pages, and that basically allows you to just host static websites without any cost whatsoever. So there's a pretty generous tier available on GitHub. You may have to have a membership. I don't know if they turn that feature on if you're not a paid member, but GitHub's pretty inexpensive. So well worth the investment to become a member of that community. So yeah, I would say to answer your question, get that beast uploaded so we can all sample the goodness of what you're building there. Sometimes people will say, well, it's, what if it's a project that it's for a freelance client, and so ask if it's okay for you to like publicly like show it as your work. If you're not able to, ask if it's okay if you can take some screenshots and use screenshots in your portfolio. But best case scenario is to try and get it hosted. Try and look for inexpensive solutions for hosting if you can. That way you have sort of a way that's not going to cost you a lot. You could use Heroku. You could use, there's something called Now. It's made by Zeit. So there's lots of DigitalOcean. There's lots of ways that you can, economically host a website. And it's good practice for you to learn that part of the process, which is like deploying your website and getting it live. So 100%. Get that beast live. All right. What other questions do you have? Got some last minute, just scraping by. Anyone else have any questions? I know, again, it takes a couple minutes for it to come through, so I'll give you a little countdown. And you are welcome, Caleb. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for participating. I see there's I got a thumb up from Jock. Thank you. Jock is this guy I ride with a lot, so I do a lot of cycling, and Jock is the chapter director for San Diego Adobo Velo. That's the club that I'm in, and Jock's always showed me love. I appreciate it, man. And then it looks like we've had some people now on Twitch, so I think I might officially at some point become like, I don't know, whatever the first tier is in Twitch. You got to get a certain number of people to listen and follow. So kind of excited about that because I don't do any other live streaming. So does anybody else use Twitch? Is it a thing amongst software engineers? I know it's a thing for gamers. I'm just curious if that's where the audience is at. But all right, no other questions coming through. I am gonna bid adieu, go eat my lunch, and we'll do this again next week. If I get any questions in between now and then via email, then I'll save them up, and I promise I will cover them in the next Looking for Work. This will be next week. Do it every Tuesday, 12 o'clock Pacific. Until then, later.